Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is no rumor, no careless whisper of the Vatican walls. This is something far deeper. A decree was issued, but not from the grand halls of the Apostolic Palace, not from the cardinals' secret gatherings, not even from the voice of the Curia themselves. No, this came from a place unseen, unheard, untouched by the eyes of men. A dismissal, without warning. No trial, no summons, no defense. One man, stripped of his title, erased with a single stroke of the pen. His name? Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, the very prince of the church they once praised as the voice of the East, now silenced without a word. Why? What secret did Pope Leo XIV uncover? What shadow crept from the past to force the hand of the most mysterious pontiff in centuries? The Vatican won't say. The cardinals dare not speak. The walls of St. Peter's, they whisper in the dark, but only to those who listen. And now you will listen too, because this dismissal could fracture the very foundation of the church itself. Some say Tagle knew something forbidden, something hidden beneath layers of prophecy and fear. A sermon lost, a document vanished, a secret buried beneath the marble of the basilica. And Pope Leo XIV, he saw it, he touched it, and he acted in silence. But silence is never empty. It is filled with meaning, filled with fear. Why does the Holy Father fear this truth? Why did he remove Tagle so swiftly, so secretly? What did he read in the forbidden archives? What appeared to him in the lonely hours of prayer beneath the dome? Stay, stay and witness the truth unravel. Stay, because once you hear this, you will never see the church the same way again. But I must warn you, some truths cannot be unlearned. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. This is no conspiracy. This is no fiction. This is a fracture in the heart of the Vatican itself. And you are about to stand at its very edge. Before we begin, type "pray" below that the truth may find you, and subscribe for the revelations to come. His name was struck from the records, not with a public decree, not with the thunder of the consistory or the grand assembly of princes of the church. No voices raised, no debate held in the crimson halls of the Vatican, only silence. A quiet, chilling silence, as if heaven itself had held its breath. There was no signature upon the parchment, no official seal, no words of explanation for the world outside, only a single phrase, slipped carefully into the Archivum Secretum, the deepest vault of Vatican secrets where daylight dares not enter. Ne procedat ultra, let him go no further. 6 words, 6 deadly words. A command written by a hand unknown but carrying the full terrible weight of Peter's throne. And with that, Cardinal Tagle vanished, gone from the rosters, gone from the congregations, gone from the lips of those who once called him the future of the church. The corridors of the Apostolic Palace whispered his name that morning, but no one dared speak aloud. For what had he done? What did he see? Why would Pope Leo XIV, the silent reformer, the shadow pope, bring down the sword upon him without warning, without mercy? Something had shifted, something ancient, something the world was never meant to know. It began, they say, with a sermon, a single sermon, that should have been forgotten. But Leo remembered. He had watched, alone in the dusk of his private study, the flickering black and white footage of Cardinal Tagle in Manila, 2022, the voice of the East, bold, burning with truth. His words, strange, chilling. The church must return to the catacombs or be lost forever. A warning? A prophecy? Or a threat? No one knew. No one dared to ask. But something in that message made Pope Leo XIV lean forward in the candlelight, his face pale beneath the weight of revelation. And then the tapes, gone, erased from the official archives. A Vatican librarian whispered to the Holy Father. Trembling as he confessed, the recording was altered, the original is missing, replaced by a copy. Who would do such a thing? Who could reach into the sealed vaults beneath the Vatican Library and make history vanish? Tagle, or his enemies, or someone far, far older. And that was only the first sign. In the deepest levels of the secret archives, buried beneath chains and dust, a single file was unearthed, labeled in fading ink, sub umbra petri, under the shadow of Peter. Inside, nothing but a single page, redacted, blacked out, erased by careful hands, all but one trembling line. Tagle's inquiry into the third secret, unauthorized. The third secret of Fatima. A prophecy so dangerous, so earth-shaking, that even popes have refused to reveal its full contents. Why was Cardinal Tagle searching for it? And what did he find? That made Leo XIV order his quiet removal from the Church's living memory. Was he silenced? Banished for his own heresy? Or was his voice a danger because it rang with truth the world must not hear? The trail of whispers led deeper still, to the chapel of St. Paul, where Pope Leo XIV was seen, late at night, alone in prayer. Witnesses, few, brave, fearful, spoke of a strange shimmering in the air, a golden dust, swirling on the marble floor before the altar. As the pontiff knelt, the dust began to settle, forming letters no human hand could have shaped. Tagle non est. Tagle is not. Not what? Not guilty? Not real? Not alive? The meanings twisted in the minds of those few who dared to read the sign, but none could speak them aloud, and behind the Holy Father, forgotten in shadow, the faded painting of St. Peter, weeping, as if mourning what was lost, or what was to come. A message from the past, a warning of the future, or a sign that the veil between the seen and unseen had been torn. But the final blow, the secret truth, lay not in visions or lost documents. It lay in the private fear of Pope Leo XIV himself. Some say he broke the papal ring that night, snapped the symbol of his own authority, cracked it across the stone of the chapel floor, and as he knelt there, his face pale with dread, they say he whispered a name forbidden, a name written long ago in the margins of prophecy. What was that name? What did he see? A pact unspoken, a sin unredeemed? We do not know. But the bells of St. Peter's tolled that hour 13 times, a number forbidden in the liturgies of the Church. And yet it rang out clear beneath the dome, as if the stones themselves cried warning. And now, you have heard the first part of this secret. The reason Cardinal Tagle was dismissed, not by men, but by the will of something far greater and far darker. But this is only the beginning. The Vatican's walls are thick with fear. The Holy Father walks alone, burdened by a truth too terrible to speak. What was discovered in that hidden chamber? What did the third secret reveal? And what did Leo XIV fear so much that he would erase a prince of the Church forever? Stay, stay, and the next veil will be lifted. The darkness is not yet done speaking. Type "pray" below that the truth may reach you, and subscribe, for what is coming cannot be ignored. But listen closely, brethren, because the silence of Rome hides more than the dismissal of a cardinal. It hides the one clue no one dares mention: a letter, not just any letter. A parchment so old its edges crumbled when touched, sealed not with wax, but with threads of gold. It was found, by whom, none dare confess, in the papal apartments themselves, tucked behind the great crucifix in the private chapel of Pope Leo XIV. No date, no signature, only a line, written in trembling Latin script. He who searches the third secret without the key shall be undone. And beneath those words, a single name scratched hastily, as if by a dying hand: Tagle. What did it mean? Was Cardinal Tagle warned by someone before him? Or was this a prophecy from the grave? Some say the letter came from John Paul I, whose death, even now, drapes the Vatican in mystery. Others whisper of Pius XIII, or even of a voice older still. But whoever left that warning knew. They knew what the third secret truly was, Not a vision of distant doom, not a warning of distant apostasy, but a key to a truth the Vatican has never dared to speak aloud. For the third secret, brethren, was not about war, not about persecution, not even about the fall of faith. It was about the breaking of the church itself, a shattering of the old order, a catacomb return, as Tagle once dared to preach, or a silent surrender to forces unseen, unholy, and unchecked. Pope Leo XIV saw the signs, the altered tape, the missing sermon, the erased document, but most chilling of all, the dream. It is said that on the night before Tagle was dismissed, the Holy Father was seen in the gardens of the Vatican long after midnight, his face pale, his eyes wide, and when his frightened attendants found him kneeling beneath the statue of Saint Michael the Archangel, he was trembling, whispering over and over, "The man in dust, the man in dust." What was this man in dust? A demon? A warning? A figure from prophecy? No one knows. But the next morning, the decree was written, "Ne procedat ultra." Let him go no further. And Cardinal Tagle was no more. His apartments, emptied. His papers, burned in the great stove of the Apostolic Palace. His name, struck from the registers. Even his portrait, removed from the gallery of princes, as if he had never existed. But why such fear? Why such urgency? Because, dear listener, the third secret is not a tale of fire and war. It is a tale of corruption, of something inside the church, a seed planted long ago, growing still. And perhaps Cardinal Tagle had uncovered it. Perhaps he had spoken too boldly. Perhaps his sermon in Manila was not a warning to the world, but a warning to the Curia itself. Return to the catacombs, or be lost. What did he mean? Was there a hidden church beneath the church? A faithful remnant waiting to rise when the great fall came? Or did he mean something darker still? That the catacombs were not a place of refuge, but of betrayal? Did he speak of those ancient halls beneath Rome, where strange rites were once held, long before Peter came? Did he hint at an old covenant, made in darkness, renewed in secret by men in scarlet? The thought chills the soul. And so Pope Leo XIV acted, for in his heart, the dream of the man in dust still lingered, and the golden dust in the chapel of St. Paul had spelled its message clear: Tagle non est. Was it a sign of judgment, or a warning that Tagle was never what he seemed? That is the mystery, and that is why this dismissal, this silent, deadly dismissal, shakes the Vatican to its ancient foundations. Some truths are too great to reveal, some secrets too dangerous to bear, and the third secret of Fatima may be the greatest of them all. But remember this, brethren, the bells tolled 13 times that night, and such a sign has never rung in the Vatican before. Not once, not in 2,000 years. The walls tremble, the stones remember, and the truth waits in silence beneath the dome. But the veil, brethren, is thinner than you think. For after Cardinal Tagle's quiet fall, after his name was burned from the records and his face turned to shadow, the signs did not stop. No, they multiplied. In the sacristy of the Sistine Chapel, hidden beneath layers of dust and centuries, a fragment of parchment was found. Not by priests, not by guards, but by a novice, a young brother, sent to polish the floor where the popes robed themselves before Mass. And there, wedged behind an ancient cabinet, was a slip of cracked vellum. It read only this: "The East will speak, the West will silence, the keys will turn in darkness." No signature, no seal, but written in the same trembling Latin as the golden-threaded letter from Leo's chapel. A warning, a prophecy, or the last confession of a doomed man? And who was meant to find this? Was this Tagle's last cry to the world before the silence fell? Or the trace of another hand, guiding history in secret? But that was not the last sign. There was the candle. In the private chapel of Pope Leo XIV, where only the pontiff prays, one candle would not stay lit. Each time it was touched with flame, it died, again and again, and on the wax itself, a mark appeared, not carved, not burned, formed, as if the wax itself had wept into shape, the letter T, the ancient Tau cross, the sign of protection and of doom. Tagle's sign. Why? What force dares to burn this sign into the wax of the fisherman's chapel? And what did Leo XIV see in those lonely hours when he knelt before that dying flame? Some say he wept. Others say he laughed, a dry, hopeless laugh before rising to write the final decree. But the truth only the stones heard. For after that night, the bells tolled no more. And then came the dust, the golden dust, returning to the chapel of St. Paul. But this time, it formed not words, a shape, a man's shape, thin, hollow, like a figure robed in despair, facing the altar, bowing low. Some swear they saw it move. Others, those who dared to watch longer, say it turned its head toward the door, toward the hidden watchers, and they fled. Even the Swiss Guard, the bravest of the Holy See, crossed themselves in fear and refused to return. The man in dust, the same figure from Leo's dream. A dream that had driven him, pale and shaking, into the gardens at midnight. But the vision had crossed into waking life. And then came the final sign, a letter, delivered not by courier, not by hand, but laid upon the papal throne itself. The fisherman's seat, empty, dark, veiled in shadow. No one saw who left it. No door was opened, no guard gave passage, and upon that folded parchment, only two words, non revertitur, he shall not return. No name, no seal, but all who saw it understood. Tagle was gone, not dismissed, not exiled, gone, as if he had never been, and the fear spread like a sickness. For if the Church could erase a prince of its own heart without voice, without trial, what else could vanish into silence? What other truths could be swallowed in the shadow beneath the dome? And so now, brethren, the question falls to you. What truly happened to Cardinal Tagle? Did he uncover a truth the Church feared, or did the Church remove a danger too great to bear? And what of Pope Leo XIV, the silent reformer, the shadow pontiff, the man who kneels alone before the man in dust? What does he carry on in his silent heart? A fear, a burden, or a secret so terrible that even the keys of Peter cannot unlock its chains? Stay, stay, because this mystery is not yet finished. The next veil will rise, and what lies beneath may shake the Church itself. But listen well, for there is more, much more, and what I tell you now, few in Rome would dare even to whisper. Because after Cardinal Tagle's quiet erasure, after his portrait was removed, his office stripped bare, his name silenced in the official registers, strange things began to stir beneath the Vatican, in the old tunnels, the forgotten catacombs, places where no priest has walked for centuries, unless they carried a purpose darker than prayer. The custodes, the secret keepers of the underground ways, reported something unsettling. Footprints, fresh, in the dust of a chamber sealed since the pontificate of Pius XIII. But no guard had entered, no workman had been sent, no pilgrim permitted to tread those cryptic stones. And yet, the prints were there, trailing down, deeper, toward the forbidden chamber marked with a single symbol, the key and the sword crossed, the sign of the Vigilati, the ancient order charged with guarding the Church's darkest relics. Relics that, it was said, no eye should ever see, not even the Holy Fathers. Why, after Tagle's dismissal, would the dust be disturbed there? What secret stirred awake? And then came the book, returned anonymously to the Vatican Library one cold morning, a book long thought destroyed. The Liber Umbrae, the Book of the Shadow, a heretical text, condemned by 7 popes, burned, broken, lost to history, and yet there it lay, on the desk of the chief archivist, untouched by time, bound in cracked leather, smelling of old incense and ash. Inside, a single page marked in red, The eastern prince shall seek the gate, the fisherman shall bar the way, the dust shall rise. Eastern prince, Tagle, fisherman, Leo, and the dust, the man in dust, seen by the Pope in his dream, formed by the golden motes in the chapel, moving, bowing, watching. Coincidence or prophecy unfolding at last? The old monks of the secretum whispered behind closed doors. He went too far, they said of Tagle. He opened what was sealed. But what did he open? And what lies behind the gate? Even the Holy Father, whose courage carried him to dismiss a prince of the church, dares not answer. For in the nights that followed Tagle's removal, the signs multiplied. The bells of St. Peter's, once silent, tolled 13 times again, once more in the dead of night. No hand pulled the rope, no clock struck the hour. The bells rang by themselves. And far below the basilica, in the crypt of the popes, a light was seen, flickering, wandering. Some say it was the ghost of a priest long dead. Others are not so sure. For the guards on duty, those few brave enough to speak, told a different tale. They saw a man, tall, thin, cloaked in shadows, his face hidden beneath a hood. He walked the ancient tombs as if searching, seeking, and when they called out to him, he turned, and they saw no face, only dust, blowing gently in the silent air. The man in dust returned to guard what must not be seen, or to reveal what must not be spoken. No one knows. But Pope Leo XIV knew. He knew, because after that night he locked the papal archives, sealed the gates to the catacombs, and retired to his chamber, where the light burned long into the dawn, praying, weeping, writing, they say, a letter no one was meant to read. Hidden now in the secretum, one sealed with his ring. What does it contain? A confession? A warning? A prophecy of doom? No one knows. But when the next conclave is called, it will be found. And when it is read, the church may tremble. For the secret of Cardinal Tagle's dismissal, the truth of the third secret, and the rise of the man in dust, may yet tear the veil from the eyes of the world. And you, brethren, you who have listened this far, you now stand at the edge of that terrible truth. Stay, because this is not the end. The darkness has not yet spoken its final word. The next revelation waits behind the veil. But wait, dear soul, do not look away, for the deeper you listen, the clearer the shadows speak. And now, the oldest whisper rises, a forgotten truth, long buried beneath marble and gold, stirs once more, because the dismissal of Cardinal Tagle was not the end. No, it was the signal, the quiet spark that set the ancient mechanism in motion. In the deepest vault beneath the Vatican, beneath the very bones of Peter himself, there lies a chamber, a vault known only by one name, Locus Immutabilis, the place that does not change, sealed for centuries, a place even popes are forbidden to enter, unless the church stands at the edge of ruin. And days after Tagle was erased, the seal upon that vault was broken, witnessed only by 4 men, Pope Leo XIV, his silent secretary, the guardian of the archives, and the commander of the Swiss Guard. They alone descended into the darkness. They alone opened the iron door, its surface inscribed with the words, Si aperias mundus ardebit. If you open, the world will burn. Inside, a single object, a box of simple wood, unmarked, save for one symbol scorched into its lid, a serpent devouring its own tail. The Ouroboros, the sign of eternal return, of endings becoming beginnings, and beside it, a page, fragile, fading, written in Latin and Greek, the languages of prophecy. The words chilled the Holy Father to his bones. The Eastern voice broke the silence. The dust rose, the keys turned, the circle completes. Eastern voice, Tagle, dust, the man who watches, the keys, the pontiff who holds the power to bind and loose. The circle completes. But what circle? What endless return? Was the third secret not a warning of the future, but of a cycle? a dark wheel that turns through the ages, binding the church in silence and fear. Was Tagle the next voice in that circle, a herald, willingly or not, of what must come again? And is that why he was erased? To delay the turning of the wheel, or to hasten it? None of the four who entered that chamber have spoken since, their eyes hollow, their faces pale. And Pope Leo XIV, he has not smiled since that day, his gaze distant, as if forever watching some unseen terror in the dark. But the signs did not stop. One more sign came. The fisherman's ring, the symbol of Peter, worn by the Pope, was found cracked, split cleanly down the center. Impossible, for the ring is cast as one piece, unbreakable by human hands, and yet broken, as if the bond between heaven and earth itself had been strained or severed. And that was when the earthquakes began, small at first, gentle tremors beneath Rome, but old stones do not lie. And the basilica itself groaned in the night, as if bearing the weight of something ancient and dreadful. A warning, perhaps, that the church stands at the edge of a mystery too great to contain. For if the third secret is true, if the cycle turns again, then soon the fisherman must fall, the dust will rise, and the church will return to the catacombs by choice or by force. And you, dear listener, you have heard the warning first, before the cardinals, before the world, before even Rome dares to speak aloud what it fears in silence. But the final seal remains, the letter written by Pope Leo XIV himself, locked now in the secretum, its contents unknown, its prophecy unread. When the fisherman's throne is next empty, that letter will be opened, and its words will decide the fate of the church. Until then, you wait. We all wait. For the sound of the bell, for the rise of the dust, for the turning of the key, and the final unveiling of the truth that has slept beneath the Vatican for 2,000 years. Stay, stay, and you will hear what the world was never meant to know. But now, you must understand. The hour draws near. The silence within the Vatican walls is thick, heavier than incense, heavier than prayer. Because those who know, those few who have seen this, cannot speak. Not the archivists, not the guards, not even the Holy Father himself. For what Pope Leo XIV discovered in the depths of the locus immutabilis, what he read upon that crumbling parchment, what he saw within the swirling dust of the chapel, has chained his voice forever. Some say he has sworn the votum silenti, the ancient oath of silence, a vow older than Rome itself, a vow made when secrets were not meant for men, and so he prays, alone, in the dark corridors of the apostolic palace, far from the eyes of the curia, his meals untouched, his face pale, his fingers forever turning the broken halves of the fisherman's ring, wondering when the bell will toll again. For the dream returns to him, they say, each night. The man in dust stands at the threshold of the Vatican library, neither alive nor dead, watching, waiting, for the next command, for the next step in the circle, and beneath the basilica, deep in the bones of Peter, the earth groans again. The cracks spread along the crypt stones, the old seals fail, and the catacombs, those ancient halls of death and waiting, breathe once more, because the third secret was never meant to be read. Not by Tagle, not by Leo, not by any man. It was a warning, a chain to bind the cycle. And now that chain has been broken. What comes next cannot be stopped. The church must choose to descend into the catacombs willingly, or be dragged there in ruin. And you, dear soul, you have seen the signs, heard the whispers, felt the veil tremble. When the next conclave is called, when the fisherman's throne is empty once more, the letter in the secretum will be opened, and the world will know what Cardinal Tagle discovered, know what Pope Leo XIV fears, know what the man in dust truly is. And then the bells will ring, not 13 times, but endlessly. For the church will have crossed the threshold into the time of trial, into the darkness from which she must rise or fall forever. This is the shadow truth. This is the silent decree. And now, you know, You who have dared to listen. You who have stayed until the last whisper. You are no longer innocent of what stirs beneath the Vatican. And when the final veil is torn, you will remember these words. Stay vigilant, stay prayerful, and wait. For the last bell, type "pray" below that the Church may stand through the storm, and subscribe. For when the final seal breaks, you will be among the first to witness the truth that Rome cannot hide. Soon, very soon, the darkness will speak its last word.